Thanks for your help for that moment, Keelan.
Good morning.
Oh, you're welcome.
Good morning.
Good morning, y'all. How are you? Happy Thursday.
Okay.
We're going to get started in just a moment as you are getting comfortably situated in your virtual seat. I would invite you to please add your name, your email address, your campus, and your role on that campus into our chat function. This helps us to connect with you, to know who's here, to continue to serve you as we move forward in this online wayfaring series, wayfinding series. And to follow up with delivering this recording to you, various other things afterwards. So if you're wondering how to access that chat function, it depends on what type of computer you're on. Typically, Zoom is either going to make those options for chat available at the bottom of your screen on the right or on the top of your screen on the right. And if you kind of float your mouse around, you should see a little orange button that says chat. And that's that place you're going to want to click on to put your name, your email address, the campus that you are connected to or campuses that you're connected to, and your role. So I'll give folks just a second to get themselves in and adjusted. We'll get going in just a moment. It's a sunny day here in far northern California, which is not what my background is. That's Hawaii. It's sunnier in Hawaii than it is in far northern California. But when it suns, when it shines, when the sun shines up here in the far north, it does feel a little like we're in Hawaii. Such a rare occasion. So. All right. Rebecca, how are things looking on your end? Do you think we're ready to do some introductions and get rolling?
Yes, ma'am.
Let's do that thing. Okay, so thanks again for being here. My name is Nicole Bryant-Lesher. I'm an English faculty member at College of the Redwoods and also a coordinator with 3CSN. And I'm just so thrilled that you took the time from your busy schedule to join us today. Hopefully we can make this time together really valuable for you and help support you in this time of change. And then I would love for my co-facilitator to introduce herself.
Okay, my name is Rebecca Moonstone, and I'm with Riverside City College, and I'm just happy to be here with you. I'm also a 3CSN coordinator.
Thank you so much for being here. Again, if you're just joining us, the first thing that you can do that really helps you and us is to make sure that you put that information about you into the chat, your name, your email address, the college that you're affiliated with or colleges, and your role. Okay. So thanks so much for being here. I want to take just a moment to help frame some of our goals for this entire online learning series and how that tracks to the particular types of learning that we're going to do today and what you'll probably see if you're joining us in other sessions. For those of you who've been in another session of ours so far and now you're coming here, we're so grateful that you're taking more time to be with us, that you've come back. That's our goal, right, is to continue to support you in a number of different ways through this time. Specifically, 3CSN sees these Wayfaring series sessions as serving 3 objectives. First and most importantly, to create a sense of community in online environments in order to support student engagement and retention. In other words, by supporting you, by being in community with you, we're not only hopefully helping support what you need so that you can support students, but we're also modeling ways to continue to be engaged with one another and connected so that you can think about how you might also use that information in sort of a meta way to connect and stay in community with your students when you're working with them remotely. We're also centering in that goal of learning together. That's a real key tenet and value of how 3CSN does its work. And so we're dedicated to learning with each other and then also providing the network with opportunities to dialogue, share, build and strengthen knowledge, and engage in productive struggle. I'm going to pause this 1 second. I think someone might need to mute themselves. I've got some feedback in the ways. Let's see if we can find that person who isn't muted. Might it be you?
Me?
No, not you.
Oh,
The general you. Might it be you? Right. Fantastic, thank you. Thanks whoever muted. We recognize that you are attempting to do this while also doing everything else in your life in the same space. And so, boy, don't we all wish we had mute buttons for various different situations right now, right? So again, one of our goals with this time together is doing what we're doing right now, right? Providing opportunities to network, dialogue, share, build and strengthen knowledge, and engage in that productive struggle in community. And productive struggle is really that difference between something that feels overwhelming and makes us step back from something that feels challenging, but we feel connected enough with others that we can lean in, right? Productive struggle is that moment where we're working at the vanguard of our skills, but we feel that it's possible, right? If we're working with small children, we'd call this zone of proximal development, right? We're right there at that edge, and we're trying to productively struggle our way through. And to learn while we're doing it. 3CSN grounds itself in this belief that training and networking partnered with action research gives community college professionals the opportunity to transform their environments and, more importantly, their identities, right? So that they can create powerful learning working across their campus with that North Star of creating student success, right? So our theory of change is really anchored in that knowledge that transformation is always happening. We always have the opportunity to continue to transform, and that especially now in a time where transformation might be happening faster than we feel like we can keep up, it's this network and connection that allows us to have the capacity to do that. So in this particular session, we're going to look at Canvas 101, right? Some really basic tools to meet teaching, learning, and participation goals online. We're going to structure our time together in sort of a two-part way. So the first part, I'm going to do most of the talking. I'm going to model some tools that you can use and give you an opportunity to see those at work, much like you might invite your students to do in a classroom. I invite you during that time where I'm explaining and modeling to make record of your questions, right? Don't let those questions stop you. Have those questions at the ready for when we get into questions a little bit later in the session. So a couple ways that you could do that: you could have a good old-fashioned piece of notebook paper where you note those questions as you're going, or you could choose to place them into the chat, and my amazing co-facilitator, Rebecca, is going to be noting those questions. And then when we get to the Q&A portion of our time together a little later, we'll open those up. This seems to be really valuable as a process that we do because, much like in our classrooms, if we pepper in Q&A all the way through, my ability to model something from start to finish is limited, and that can make it really hard for folks to track and learn. So try and give yourself permission to note those questions, knowing that many of them might be answered in what I'm modeling, and if not, we're going to catch them later. For technical assistance questions, right, something's happening on my screen and you can't see it, or it's not working, something that's really impeding your learning at that moment, reach out to Rebecca on that chat and she will do her best to get immediate support to you while we're growing, or to flag me if I'm assuming something is working and it's not. So far, what we've been finding is that there are particular ways of learning together that work effectively in online environments. And so we're modeling those as our community agreements. Whoops, I can have somebody mute themselves. Might be some shuffling going on in your background.
yes, I just put that in the chat box for you.
Hard work. So these are our community agreements, or sort of shared ways of working with each other in our time together. I'm going to take a moment, read these out loud to you, especially to make sure that I am serving our folks who might be listening in only on the phone. If you are on the phone only, I believe it's at *6 will mute you. Is that right, Rebecca? They can choose *6.
Yes, ma'am.
Great. So that folks who don't have the screen can also see what we're doing. What I would invite you to do is listen and look at what's on the screen now. And if there's any community agreements or ways of learning together that you think we need to add, I'm going to give you a moment to let us know that after I've read these through. So some ways of learning together that we have been finding work really well during our time right now is, 1 second, I'm just going to pause us and I'm going to see if I can help by muting someone who might not be muted. Just looking.
Everyone that I see is muted,
Huh.
so I'm not sure where that noise is coming from.
Let me try here. No. Huh.
So it's kind of weird.
It's the ether. It's the Zoom ether. We'll work with what we got. Okie doke. So some ways of learning together that we're going to try and hold during our time together. First, again, if you've got a question, the best ways to make us aware of that is to either raise your hand digitally, which looks like a high five symbol. It sits next to the chat function, or to put that question into the chat for Rebecca. I'm going to invite us to assume our best intentions with large group online dialogue. As you were seeing in real time just a second ago, we're all doing the best we can and trying to make this environment work, which is not as synchronous and natural as if we were in a room together. I'm going to do the best I can to annotate or describe my actions in order to make sure that those with limited viewing ability or audio only options can still track with what we're doing, right? I'm not going to assume that they can see what I'm doing on the screen. And some great suggestions that we've received from our participants over the last week of doing these online sessions are listed in those last 4 bullets, and they just kind of help center us in how we learn together. So first and foremost, keeping in mind that we're all learners right now and doing our best that we can, that it's okay to ask clarifying questions. Just because I model something one way or explain it one way doesn't mean that that's the only way it can be explained, and it might not work for everyone. So just holding that in place. And then 2 really important ones, a reminder for you to keep things simple for yourself and for your students. Again, we're doing the best we can. A little goes a long way, right? And to be kind to ourselves and to our students during this transition. Is there anything additional that you feel we might need to add to these ways of being together today? If so, go ahead and set it right into that chat with Rebecca, and I will add it to our list.
There isn't anything so far.
All right, we'll go ahead and go rocking and rolling. As I go ahead and dive into our content, one more moment to invite you and encourage you, if you have not already done so, please put your name, your college that you're affiliated with, your email address, and your role at that college into the chat function so that we can continue to reach out and support you beyond the parameters of this 60-minute webinar. So when I think about Canvas 101, right, the basics of really getting into Canvas, for me, an easy way to reduce the clutter, right, is to try and backwards design from what are my goals as a teacher or as a learning assistance professional or as a counselor when I'm working with students to what do I want Canvas to do for me, right? Canvas is a really complex learning management system. There are so many options available of what you could do that it can be a bit mentally overwhelming to try and take all that on at one time. So for your own sanity and for your student sanity, I would argue that it's really useful to first start by saying, like, what do we really have to do? And everything else becomes a what could we do if it seems appropriate. So from what I've seen in my experiences teaching online, what do we have to do in an online class or an online instruction environment of some sort is 3 things. We need to guide students, right? Guide them to the course and then guide them through the content. We need to connect with students. We need to help them connect to their learning and also connect with them to create that community. And we need to observe and evaluate student learning, right? And there's several different ways in which we could do that. Anything else that Canvas offers is a +1 to that. If you can hold in these 3 goals, you want to guide them, you want to connect them, and you want to observe and evaluate their learning, you're golden. So let's talk about how we might do that in Canvas. As we go to look at Canvas, 2 quick reminders. although our students appear to be incredibly technologically savvy, right? They've got devices, they interface with their devices and acronyms in ways that we may not be familiar with. When it comes to being in an online learning management system like Canvas, they are more nervous about this than we are, and we might feel really nervous. But that technological savvy that they have in other spaces does not translate into proficiency in an online learning environment. They're going to need our help to come alongside. They also have varied levels of skill and levels of access. So what that translates to us as designers for thinking about in those learning environments is that simple is good and clear is important. So when we're thinking about guiding, right, first and foremost, we need to guide students to the course, right? Unless you're already using Canvas in some way with your face-to-face classes prior to this move, your students are interacting with you in class, and they may have been interacting with you via your campus email. An important bridge that you can build is to use whatever that existing way of communicating with your students was digitally, whether that's email, etc., and invite them into your Canvas course, right? Send them a personalized email, send them a link, and then also maybe embed a link to your campus's resources on sort of basic Canvas stuff. For example, Redwoods has a page for online learners that includes questions like, how do I find my login information, etc., for students. And at the beginning of every semester when I'm teaching online, I reach out and offer those materials to my students to say, come join us. If you don't know how, here's where we are, and here's how to get here. So just a note to remember to reach out to them and help guide them into the class. You can also check your roster in Canvas to see who's there. And then if you haven't seen folks interacting in the first couple days, you can reach out to those folks individually to say, I haven't seen you in class yet. I haven't seen you, post into our discussion forum or complete an assignment. Did you get in okay? Are you here? Once you've guided them into your class, you might have questions about what comes next, right? For example, how do I organize my online content, right? If I were in a face-to-face class, I would be making decisions weekly about what handouts I bring in, what readings I have them do, what chapters I assign. And so that would be my way in a face-to-face class of guiding them through the content. But now I'm not seeing them, twice a week in class. So how can Canvas allow me to pace or guide that content for my students? And then how do students find their stuff? The answer to both of those questions is the same in Canvas, which is that you create modules. So in Canvas lingo, a module is a function, a digital function that organizes content, right? I would describe it as a container. A module is a container that can hold anything you want, right? It's an empty box. It's a box you build, and then you could build that box to hold a week of class content. You could build that box to hold a unit of class content. You could build that box to hold a specific category, like you have one module or container that's for assignments, one module or container that's for lecture videos, one module or container that's for readings. There's no right or wrong way to do it. It's what makes sense for how you develop information and release it to students and how your course is built, right? What you want to do with that. Another real great benefit about modules on Canvas is that modules can be built, right? You can do them in advance. You can even publish them, which I'll talk more about in a minute, to make them visible. But then you can tell Canvas, I want to build this, but I don't want anybody to be able to get into it, right? So if in a face-to-face environment in the past, you've been developing your course 6 weeks out, you know that in the middle of April, you're going to give them this reading. You've probably even made photocopies of that reading, but you're not going to give it to them in March. It's going to sit on your desk in your office until you give it to them in April. Digitally, you can do the same thing. You can prep all those materials, put them in a module, and then decide what date the students can access that information so that you've got your prep done, but you're not worried that they're moving faster than you want them to into the content. So let's take a look at what these look like so that I can make a more tangible, real example of what you might be seeing. So this is one of my courses, sort of. It's called a sandbox. You may or may not have a sandbox attached to your information at your college. It depends on how that college delivers Canvas as a learning management system. But I have a sandbox that I share with my department, and right now I'm sharing it with all of you. A sandbox is sort of a fake space that allows you to design in the background in a class that has no real students, and then you can copy that content into classes that do have real students. For us, it's really useful to have this to look at right now because I can show you tons of stuff without worrying that I'm showing you personal student information, right? The thing for you to keep in mind is that because it is a sandbox, it's a little like a baking show where I made the casseroles in advance, right? And then I'm going to take them out of the oven as if I just baked them. So there's some things that won't look exactly the same as they would look in your class, but it'll serve our purposes. And if there's any place where it does look different, I'll let you know. So our first goal when we come into this class is to make a module. Imagine that you have just opened this class for the first time in Canvas. You've not been in this class at all on Canvas yet. You haven't done any designing. It would look a little different than what you see here. What you would see is all of these navigation tabs on the left. You would see the name of your course at the top. I'm going to move my head. You would see information about your course over here on the right. You would see this bar across the middle that says view progress plus module and some dots, but you would not see this content in the middle because you would not have yet made it, right? This area would be blank, but not for long because you would say, I need some containers. I need to guide folks through my class. How am I going to do that? So I'm going to come to this middle button, which is a plus and a blue button, and it says module, and I'm going to click on it. And now I'm going to make a container. So I can name that module whatever I want. I want to think about how I'm going to guide students through. So let's say that today I want to name that module Unit 8. Grilled cheese and other guilty pleasures in the food world. Grilled cheese sounds great today. It's only 10 o'clock in the morning. It's been a long morning already. Here we go. So here's our unit title. This is that moment where I can lock this module until I'm ready for students to see it. So if I know that this is Unit 8, we're currently on Unit 4, I don't want them to see this until April, I can click this box with the checkbox on the left and say, hey, Canvas, would you please lock this module until, and then I've got a drop-down calendar on the right, until April 25th. And I can choose done. And then what that means is I can interact with it as the designer at any time. If I publish material, I promise to show you what that is in just a moment, my students will see that something is there, but they cannot enter it until whatever date it unlocks. You'll notice that there's a third option in this box under adding modules that says prerequisites. I encourage you to pretend that that is not even there right now, right? If you are building classes in the fall or in a future semester and you really want to start to think about creating some if-then relationships where you want students to do a certain activity before they can advance, you could build those. In my experience teaching online, they are not foolproof. They're a bit challenging and it adds a whole lot more complexity to how students navigate your course, which if we go back to our guiding values for what we're doing right now online, doesn't really fit what we're doing. So for those reasons, I'd say leave it, don't touch it. Just add your module. And if you add a module and you've already got content and you say, where did that module go? The answer is Canvas always adds new modules at the bottom, but you don't have to keep it there. You can click on these 8 dots on the left and move that container anywhere you want in any order. You can also relocate them, reorder them at any time, right? They're completely user-friendly to where you can design and redesign as you see fit. So now you have this container called a module. It has a title, and you see that title in the middle. You also notice that there's some buttons to the right. The first button is this circle with a slash through it, which means like no, right? And then if I hover over it, it says publish. This is Canvas's way of telling me if there's a circle and a slash that I can see this as the designer, but nobody else can see it. It has been built, but not yet in Canvas lingo, published. To publish or make it visible, I got to click on the green. Circle, it turns into a check mark and turns green. You'll also notice, similarly, over here on the right-hand side, like front and center, there's this note that says course status. And there's a big red button that tells me my course is unpublished, which is how courses start. So not only do I need to publish content in my individual modules, but before my students can even enter the course for the first time, I have to choose this check mark on the right that says publish the course. Otherwise, they cannot even see it. So it's just a reminder from Canvas like, hey, don't forget, as designer, you can see things that your students can't. You got to publish that course for them to be able to see it. The other thing that you'll notice that is that kind of reminder when you look at modules, if you're like, I'm not done with it, I'm just building it, but I set that date to lock it, in addition to the title and whether it's published or not, you're going to get this note that says will unlock and the date. So that's your visual reminder as a designer that nobody else can interact with that right now. You've got it locked down. So you now have a module, which is a container, but it's an empty box. There's nothing in it, right? It's simply the placeholder that you're going to put stuff into. I'm going to give you a second to process all that information while I put a couple examples on the screen of, again, what modules can hold. So take a moment, just process all that into the gray matter. Modules are containers. They can be organized by week or by unit or by content type, whatever makes most sense for you. So you now have a container with nothing in it. And you're thinking, gosh, that's great, but I need to connect students with the meat of my course, right? How do I connect them to their content and their readings? How do I take what I used to do, which was to make printed handouts or assignment sheets and hand them to them physically? How do I make an online environment for that, where they can receive those, download those handouts, engage with them, etc.? And you might be thinking, wow, if I'm on the web anyway, how might I reduce my lift a little bit as an instructor or a designer and utilize and integrate web resources alongside content I'm building or textbook content in order to help their learning? And the answer to all of these questions via Canvas is to create something called a content page and then add content to it. So let me show you what I mean. A quick check-in on Canvas terminology. In my opinion, the name page is a crummy name for this function, right? Because a page in real life is a single sheet of something, right? But a digital page in Canvas is actually more like a manila folder that you can write on the front of. It can both hold stuff and you can type directly into it. So it has several different functions that it can perform for you as a designer within your courses. For example, you could make one page, and in that page, you could upload readings. You could type in your instructions for what you want students to do with those readings. You could upload some handouts that accompany the readings. You could place in a YouTube video that models ideas from the readings. You could put some reminders in there about due dates or link to an assignment that you've built within Canvas. You could upload a PowerPoint or a lecture video that's delivering content along with those readings. If you want to put it in there, you probably can. Let's show you how to do that. Let's come back to our class. Up, whoops, come on back in here. There we go. Here's our container with nothing in it, but it's all about grilled cheese, which is making me excited at now 11 o'clock in the morning. So let's go add some content in here. The plus is Canvas's way of saying, let's add something. So you put this plus when you did a module. We're now going to come over to that module, and on the right, we're going to choose the plus. it gives me this pop-up window in the middle, and Canvas says, what do you want to add to that module? What stuff do you want to put in that container? It defaults to an assignment because Canvas recognizes that 99% of the time, folks are using Canvas as a place to observe and give feedback on student learning, right? So it defaults to something that's graded. But for the purposes of guiding them through learning material, you don't need to give them an assignment. You need to build a page. So you can take that drop down to the word page. If you've already built some pages in this course, they'll show in this box. But if you want a new page, you just click on it. And then maybe your new page is comfort food, unit 8, readings and assignments. You add that item. And what you'll notice is, just like a container in real life, if you had a box and you put something in it, that thing's going to sit inside the box, right? So the module is the bigger top bar. And then when you add content to it, it sits beneath. And you'll also notice that note that this is still not something that students can engage with until whatever date you've set is going to continue to go down to the bottom of that to remind you that anything sitting in this container is inaccessible until you unlock that module or that date comes around. So now I've got my content page, and I'm now learning that if Canvas tells me there's a circle with a strike through, that it's not published. My students can't see it yet. I can see it as a designer. They cannot see it, but I'm busy still designing it, so that's okay. I'm going to click on the title to be able to go do stuff with it. When I click on that title, Canvas tells me what I currently have. What I currently have is a title to an unpublished page, and there's nothing in it. But if I want to add stuff, I click on the right on this pencil that says edit. And now I can do so many cool things with this space. So I've got my overall title. And remember, this is a manila folder I can fill, but also type on. So first I'm going to type and say something like, welcome to Unit 8. Aren't you excited to dive deeper into the culinary world of comfort food? Or whatever I might want to do to bring them forward. I'm going to imagine that this is that moment that happens in my classes where I come in on a Tuesday and I start to give them a handout and I say, welcome to this new unit. What we're going to be learning about is, right? I create that kind of hook and welcome to get them in. I can type that right in there. Then I can start embedding content that I want my students to engage with. So at this point, if I've added an overview or whatever my welcome message might be, then I can start to put that content in. I can place my cursor down beneath, and then I have choices I can make. Let's say I want to upload a handout, a reading I want them to read. I could say, please read all of chapter 8 for this lesson, and maybe they have their textbooks at home. Or maybe I have an uploaded document I want them to read. I can come over to Files on the right. And if I've already uploaded that file, great. If I haven't, and this is my default, I don't upload files in advance. I upload stuff when I need it. I just come down to where it says upload a new file. And then my choices are going to expand. I choose the file. It's going to link to my desktop. I can choose a file, open it, and it's not there yet. And I know it's not there because I don't see it on my page. So it's sitting over here in the waiting room. It's waiting for me to choose this button at the bottom that says upload. Once I've chosen that and Canvas is done thinking, I'm going to see that file upload in blue right onto my page. So now I have directions for my students and a thing I want them to interact with. Let's say that I want to add some interactive media content to this, right? I can do that by linking to a URL. So let's say, for example, I decided to go to TED.com and add a presentation, right? If you've not been to TED.com and you're like, ooh, what might I want to go here? We have specific sessions. on TED.com and TED Ed. We would love to have you come and attend those. There's so many ways that you can use TED to help support student learning in your classes. Let me go on the search button and I'm going to put food in here. Let's see what we get. What's the future of food? Let's see. Food revolutions. Let's see. Ooh, talks for foodies. Great. Let's come in here. And how about want kids to learn well, feed them well. Let's say, ooh, I want this lecture content. I can click on it. And just like any, oops, sorry. Ah, there's an ad. No. Boy, we're all in real time together, aren't we? Here we go. So let's say this is my web page now that it's stopped giving me pop-up ads that I want to include. I could either come to the top, highlight that URL and know that I'm then going to copy it, or TED and many other sites are going to give me this option where I can try and get past this advertisement. It's not going to let me. That's a bummer. Here's one. Ah, okay, just pretend. Let's just pretend. Goodness. No thanks, ads. We'll do it the old-fashioned way. We'll highlight this URL. If it wasn't throwing ads up here, I'd get this button that says share, and I could click on it, and it would allow me to copy that URL. Here we go. And let's go back to our course. Now I've got that URL copied. I right-clicked on it and chose copy, or I highlighted it, and on my computer I held Control-V. I think that's probably Command, or Control-C. I think on a Mac it's probably Command-C, so that I have it copied. And so it's just waiting for me to put it in. And so our folks who are gurus at thinking about accessibility tell us that screen readers work better if we say what it is that they are going to be interacting with. So I can make a sentence first that says, please watch this TED presentation on food. I can then take that sentence that I just made, highlight it with my mouse, come up to the icon third from the left that looks like a chain, click on it, and Canvas is going to say, what URL do you want? I can Control or Command V, depending upon my computer, into that box, right-click on Insert Link, and now I've just hyperlinked that site within my page. So I've got an uploaded reading or a handout I want them to engage with. I've got digital content that I want them to engage with. We are busy building an FAQ right now that will walk you through how, if you want to, you would embed an image in a content page, especially for a class that might have diagrams as a necessary piece of learning content. One quick reminder on that is that if you are adding images within your content pages or within your course, that you want to make sure that you're developing alternate text for that so that screen readers can annotate or describe that image, right, for your students. So if you're thinking, oh, I don't really want to have to develop alternative text for all those images. If it's a non-essential image, you just want to make your page pretty, it's okay if you don't make your page pretty. The students will love your content anyway, even if you don't go and put a bunch of bells and whistles and images. If it is paramount or critically important for the learning content, then you can absolutely add those images by coming under Embed Image. And then you'll definitely want to make sure that when you embed the image, you're also taking the time in the box beneath to really clearly describe in alternate text what it is that students are seeing. I believe we're going to be having sessions starting that work with building on those ideas of accessibility in the coming weeks. So if you want to know more about, what can I do to design to make sure that I'm making my course as accessible as possible, I believe we're going to be doing some of that. Is that right, Rebecca?
Yes, ma'am. To my knowledge, we are going to be doing that.
Sounds good. So stay tuned. That's coming.
Yes.
So here's our page. let's, I have two choices down at the bottom. I can save it, or I can save it and publish it and do one-stop shopping. Let's save and publish at the same time. Woohoo! So now here's what I get. It takes me to that page. I'm not back to my front page yet. If I ever get lost in Canvas and I wonder where it's dropped me, I can look back at the top to see the breadcrumbs of where it's put me, right? And I can always choose my home tab on the left to go home. So here we are back at home, and what you'll see is I have my module that's published. I have my page that now has content that's published. If I click on that page, I can see that I have my description, I have my handout, I have my link, and it's got this little icon with an arrow on the right, so I know that that link is live. We are in good shape. So just to come back to this center space, we just learned how to develop a page. We learned how to add different types of content to that page so that we're organizing and guiding students into the material we might want them to see. You can choose to just straight upload a file. You can do that right in your modules. So instead of adding a page within your module, you could do a drop down where you choose just to upload a file. This is just a difference of preference. For faculty, there are some faculty who prefer just to put those files on there and then students click on the file and they have it. I personally like embedding files in pages, uploading them in pages, because then I can give them some directions before they start reading a thing, right? I can kind of control the environment around it a little bit more. But that's completely personal preference. So I've connected with my students, I've connected them with learning content in my class, but I'm missing that essential piece of my class feeling like a community, right? When we're in class together, we talk to each other. We have conversations, we respond to the things that we're learning, and that's currently missing in my class online. What do I do about that? How do I replicate that environment? And so Canvas's answer to that, one of its answers, is to create discussion forums. So a discussion forum in Canvas is a function that allows students to talk all together in an environment. They're incredibly flexible. They can hold anything you want. So you could create a graded discussion where students respond to a question you posted and then they respond to each other's responses. You could make a graded discussion forum where students reflect upon their process of doing something. This is particularly valuable in online classes because there's that missing moment when you're in class, right? And you're, as a teacher, wandering around, kind of checking in on how people are doing. They're likely to tell you when they're struggling, or they're likely to tell you what worked well. And that often doesn't get surfaced in an online class unless you explicitly ask for it. So a discussion forum is a great way to say, you know, how did that reading go for you? What parts of this reading were particularly challenging and how did you troubleshoot that? Or what ideas made sense from the last chapter? What new ideas are you still struggling with? As a way for them to reflect on their knowledge process as they're learning. Discussion forums capture that beautifully. And students tend to really actively engage in those discussions with each other and serve as partners to one another to troubleshoot how to do something, right? Which gives them a moment of feeling like experts while they're being learners. It's a double-double. You can also create ungraded discussions where students can post questions and you can answer them and their class colleagues can answer them. In my online classes, for every unit that we engage in every week, the first thing we have is a Q&A discussion forum. It's ungraded. It's a place where students can just ask questions they would raise their hand and ask in class. And again, it gives them an opportunity to answer each other, which reduces my load a little bit and also helps them to feel like they're participatory in our shared learning. You can, last but not least, make graded discussions where students attach a draft of something and then other students respond on that draft, right? So let's say they're working on something and you say, take your rough draft, attach it to this discussion forum and post 2 things that you're struggling with so that your class colleagues can help you. And then say everybody needs to respond to 2 people. So they'll be looking at each other's drafts, giving each other feedback, and then you as instructor can kind of peer over the edge and look at all of that and support them as they're working. So let's take a look at how to design these within Canvas. So here's my unit 8. We've got grilled cheese. We've got comfort food. We need to talk about this delicious food in here. So I'm going to, again, go back to my plus. I'm going to come to my arrow drop-down menu, and I'm going to tell Canvas, I want to build a discussion. Just like when I built a page, if I have other content, Canvas is going to ask me, do you want the discussion you already built, or do you want something new? I'm going to say, I'd like something new, please. And let's put this discussion as comfort food using the items already in your pantry, right? Shelter in, what can we use? What's in the back of your pantry? Here we go. So you've built this discussion just like everything else that you've built. It's just a placeholder right now because you haven't put any content in it. And it's also not published, and Canvas tells you that because of the circle with the slash. So just like with a page, you make the same move to engage with it, which is to click on the title. And then Canvas is going to show you what you have. Just like with a page, it's going to say, this is what you have so far. Do you want to edit it? And that's when on the right with the pencil, you can say, yes, please, I would love to edit this. So you've got your title, and now you have a box that you can type into or do other stuff with. So this is where you could say what your directions are for them, right? You could add the specific directions. Please respond to this question. Please include 2 responses to class colleagues. You can make those directions as specific as you want, and the more specific you are, the higher likelihood that students are going to know what they need to do to be successful with this activity. So you could give your prompt plus a note. Please make your initial response, your initial post between 250 and 300 words. Okay. Please respond to 2 class colleagues. Each response should continue the conversation beyond appreciating In other words, nice post isn't enough to keep conversation going, right? And there's lots of ways in which you could make a more in-depth explanation for that. I'm just modeling something really brief. And then you could say, please make response posts 150 words each. Okay. Other things that you can do in this box where you're building this discussion forum, just like when you're building a page, you could link and invite students to watch a TED presentation or some other piece of web content and then post their response. You could upload a file right here on the page and say, please read this, and then form a 250-word response to this question, right? So you can link their assignments right in here. You can link to a content page. If you want them to talk about an image, right? You're looking at all the muscles in a certain portion of the body, you could embed that image here. Whatever it is that you might be doing, you can put that information in here. And then Canvas says, okay, what else do you want to do with this forum? Okay. If you want to attach a file, rather than putting the file in the directions, you can do that separately here with the choose file. And then you have options for how your discussion forum works. Most of the time, folks I know default to putting allowing threaded replies, because that means the initial post and all of the response posts to that question sit together. They nest together, threaded. You can tell Canvas that you want users to have to post first before they can see replies, like you want them to engage in their own original thinking before they can see what other people have put. I go back and forth with this. The first couple discussion forums that I do in any class, I don't choose this because people get really nervous. So I let them see each other's posts first. And then once we get to the second or third week, I tell them, now you're going to need to post first. You've got a feel for how this works. Now you're going to need to post first. And this is where I tell Canvas to grade it. And if I choose graded, it gives me all these additional choices. How many points do I want this discussion forum to be worth? Let's say 15, right? Do I want it to display as points or percentage? And then I've got a box down here. When is this due? And if I choose a due date, that's going to signal to the students that they can see that on their Canvas page. It's going to show up as a to-do. It's going to show up in their calendar. right? It creates that moment in the gradebook that will tell me whether or not they've submitted on time. All of those sort of time parameters happen when I choose a date. And then like everything else, I can just choose save if I want to come back and edit it. I can choose save and publish, which means that my students can see something is there. And just like last time, if I choose save and publish, but I have that directive on my module that it doesn't open until the 25th, they can see it, they still can't engage in it. So we are now at the moment in our session where I want to invite your specific questions to make sure that I am getting to those. What might you want to know? How can I help?
Okay, we have Rosario who asked the question, is there a chat function within Canvas? And if so, is this available to programs/offices that are not instructional?
So the chat function that I am most familiar with is using the discussion forum. And it really depends on whether or not you have a Canvas course outside of instructional course. So me personally at College of the Redwoods, I'll show you my courses here. I have a couple courses that are not, actually I have many of them right now that are not instructional courses, right? So this is a course that is a learning community for English faculty. We're part of it. And so we use the discussion forums in there to engage with learning and communicate with each other. This is the sandbox that I'm using with you right now. This is College of the Redwoods' response to supporting faculty as we move into this teaching online environment. And then we have a training module. So it really depends on what your campus has for that purpose. But you can definitely reach out to them and see what your options are, and if they can make one. It's great to have as a way to share resources across campus and beyond student to instructor relationships.
That's the only question that I had, but if, as I stated in the text, Rosario says thank you.
You bet, you bet.
You can definitely unmute yourself, and please ask your questions if you wrote them down.
While folks are thinking, let me show you one more thing. Let me show you two things that might be of use to you. Let's stick with discussion forums for a second. Let's say that you're thinking about that and you're like, oh yeah, I want students to be able to upload something and to be able to talk about it with each other, right? For them to connect and show each other's drafts. There is one specific move you have to make on Canvas to allow students to attach something to a discussion forum post. And the way that you do that is way down here on the left. So you're in these navigation tabs and you come down here to settings, you click on settings. And then within settings, this first default tab is course details. If you go all the way to the bottom of the course details, you're going to see this teeny tiny language that says more options. I'm not sure why it's so tiny, but you click on that and you get more options. And one of the options that's in here that you have to click in order for students to be able to attach a file, like attach a document in a discussion forum, is the first checkbox under this how many number of announcements do you want on the homepage. And that checkbox says, let students attach files to discussions. The default in Canvas is that this is unchecked. So if you want students to be able to have that paperclip icon where they can attach something, you have to tell Canvas to let them. And that's where you do that. And if you're like, thank you so much, Nick, I might not remember that in a week. No worries. Let me show you the other thing that's useful about Canvas. So you're back on your page. It's 11 o'clock at night. You're trying to figure out how to do something, right? You don't want to phone a friend. What might you do? Okay. Let me find it. It just takes me a moment of looking on here. Oh, it's over here on the left. I'm sorry, it's not on the right. On the left, there's on your Canvas page, there's you, right? There's your dashboard, there's your courses, there's your calendar, there's your email. And then down beneath, there are two boxes here. One is Commons, which will link you to published shared content. The other is this question box that says Help. If you click on that, you open it up, there's all these different resources. I can only imagine how busy the Canvas support hotline is right now around the country. So you could call them, But how about instead, go to this link that says search the Canvas guides. And if you click on that, Canvas will give you this place where you can putter around, but who has time to putter right now? Instead, you can click on this magnifying glass icon on the right, and you can say, how, I won't ask a full question, I'll say attach documents to discussion forum. Something like that, right? What's the action I want to know how to do? And then Canvas is going to give me choices. How do I attach a file to a discussion reply as a student? And then it literally gives me this guide with visual step-by-steps of how I do that on Canvas. So the benefit of this is that I can learn how to do a thing, but let's say I ask a question like, how do I see my graded feedback as a student? I can let this Canvas guide help me populate supporting guiding my students through my course. And so let's see, how do students see feedback in peer review, whatever it is you might want them to see? You can come in here and actually link to this page, put it in your course and say, students, I need you to see your feedback. Here's how to do that. So this Canvas page of resources is both a resource to you, but also a place that's already done a bunch of the work on the step-by-step talking through you might need to do with your students to support them getting through your course. Okay, very quickly, we have 2 questions. You got it.
Can we talk a bit about messaging in Canvas? She says, in EOPS, we now have an EOPS Canvas shell and students can message in this way. Will this send messages to our general email or do we need to check that in Canvas? And if so, how do we do that?
Great question. So it depends on what messaging means and it depends on how Canvas is set up on your campus and on your course, right? So you may or may not have Canvas set up to push to your email. But even if it is set up to push to your email, personally, I think it is easiest to go into Canvas to see what is there. I can only show you a portion of this because I don't want to take you into personal student content. But over here is your inbox. This is the hub where student information will come to you. If they are messaging you and you mean an email, it's going to show up there. If you have set up some sort of interactive activity in your class, and they've written a comment to something, when you go into your inbox, you can choose instead of messages to look at submission comments. That's more for instructors. If you're working with an EOPS and there's messaging, it's probably an email or it's in discussion forums. If there's an additional resource, that would be beyond my knowledge at this point. But maybe that's something we can troubleshoot in one of those coaching sessions where we work one-on-one to help you a little bit more in depth.
Okay, 2 quick questions. It's 11:29. Is it possible? Is it possible to upload files from Google Docs?
Yes.
Okay. And when students email you using Canvas, can other students view their emails?
No, it's private. So the only time that students might see something is if you put a bunch of students on a group email and you tell them to reply all, then they would see just like in the regular email world. But if a student privately emails you on Canvas, that is literally just between you and that student. If you email a student privately on Canvas, it's just between you and that student.
Very good.
Last thing I want to show you is some links to other ways to be supported and loved in this time together. So first, and actually you don't even have to go to this full link anymore, you can go to 3csn.org. On our front page is that list of all of our online sessions that we're offering to support you right now. Please continue to learn with us. We learn so much more in community with one another. We hope to see you in another session. And Rebecca's going to be pasting these into the chat so that you have them. The second is a link to our Padlet source, which is this amazing network sourced set of resources. It's incredible. It's so incredible. What it does is it connects you to resources and it also gives you an opportunity to help make us even stronger by sharing your expertise and knowledge, because you can post things there too. So it's literally happening and developing in real time. And last but not least, A reminder to come and join us in those thought partner or coaching sessions where we have an opportunity in a smaller group to work one-on-one with you and dive into those deeper level questions and help you troubleshoot from wherever you might be with the particular question that you have. We're so grateful that you have taken your time and spent it with us. We really appreciate you being here, and we hope that you have a fantastic Thursday. We'll be in touch with this video once the hamsters roll and everything gets uploaded. And we hope you have a great, great Thursday.